Good morning. Oh, is my camera working?
I can see
Yes,
you
good morning.
Am I pixelated?
a little tiny bit, but you're fine.
That's odd.
Yeah.
So again, you know how I was having computer issues? It was fixed this
Mhm.
morning. I kid you not. Back to this. So back to my little computer.
Well, hey, we always do whatever it takes to make it work, right, Christina?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, it is 8:30. Christina, do we know if anybody could not make it this morning?
No one said they couldn't, but I am texting now.
Okay, thank you. Casey Shante.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Quite the room. Don't worry, you'll get introductions as we go through the items.
Christina, who else is officially on our committee?
Dr. Schmerling, Phil Rigor, Craig, and Chante.
Okay, I see Shante, good morning. Okay.
And I have not heard from Phil.
Okay. We'll give it one more minute and then we're gonna go ahead and start. All right, well, I'm gonna say let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Finance and Audit Committee for Hartford Public Schools Board of Education. My name is Kim Oliver. I am chair of this committee. I'm joined by my colleague, Shante Brody, also board member. As you may have heard, we are possibly going to be joined by some of our other board members, and when they come on, we'll make sure to introduce them. With that said, we seem like we have a pretty decent agenda for this morning. including our items for the regular meeting. What I would like to do, similar to what we did last time, is to switch things up just a little bit to give more of my colleagues a chance to join us before we go into our items for our regular meeting, with some of the quick updates that I think, based on the handouts, probably won't take very long. So with that said, I'm going to go to agenda item number 2 for update on financial stability work with ERS, and hand it over to our CFO, Phil Penn.
Good morning, Madam Chair and everyone on the call. Appreciate you being here. Let me give a quick overview of sort of where we are with our financial sustainability work and with our finance strategic assessment. And I'll actually start with the finance strategic assessment. Thank you, Christina. Now I can read it. Within the last 2 weeks, we've sent out an anonymous survey to just under 200 finance customers across the district as a means of gauging how well we are not supporting their efforts in education. The survey closed last Friday, November 5th. We got about a 35% response rate on the survey. Our outside partners, Clifton Larson Allen, will be utilizing a lot of the data that was compiled in that survey to conduct interviews of a number of people, one-on-one or one-on small group this week. That would include cabinet members. It would include members of my staff. And as a result or an outcome of that work and their overall examination of sort of how we're structured, what technology we use, how our processes work, the intent is to come in mid-December with a set of recommendations about potential changes that we'll share with the board and the finance committee at that point, and think about implementation work to start after the beginning of the new year. So I'm pleased with where we are with that project at this point. We're moving right along and right on pace for where we thought we would be at this point. Financial sustainability, and you recall, we're talking about financial sustainability, meaning that your growth in revenues is equal to your expenses over the long term, so that you're not fighting a structural deficit on a continual basis within the district. Right now, what we're in the process of doing is building a fairly robust financial model that takes us out to the 2029-30 period. So it's 7 years beyond the 22-23 budget that we just kicked off within the last 2 days. Why do we pick 29-30? That's how far out our enrollment projections go. So it gives us a fairly good visibility out to that time frame to say, okay, what can we achieve over the next 7 years, 8 years, and what does that look like? And what's the heavy lift that would need to get done early on that either enables later work or provides most of the benefit that we would get over that period. So we've got a team of volunteers from within the finance department that are tasked, along with me, with working on the revenue portion of that model, because we don't want this to just be a cost exercise. I think I mentioned that before. We need to attack this from both sides to really do a deep dive around what can we do in terms of generating additional revenue growth that we're not seeing in the district right now, and identifying sources from where that would come from. ERS, our partner on the outside that's working on this project, is working on the expense side. So they're taking the last 8 years of actual data that we have to start building out assumptions around where we think costs would likely go over the next 8 years. And then it's setting up a deep dive into what will probably be 5 or 6 real key areas where our biggest spends take place, and you can probably guess what those are now. It's salary, it's special education, it's tuition, transportation, and down the line, with the intent of getting into those deep dives and really starting to say, how can we structure things differently that potentially provides greater efficiency for the district, but doesn't sacrifice educational delivery. That's what the overall objective is on the expense side. So overall, that's a much more long-term project. I think we're looking at potential outcomes from that project at least 6 or 7 months out from where we are today. But there's a lot of good work that's taking place within the two teams as we attack both sides of that problem. And we've got on the agenda planned in mid-December a more deep dive into our initial findings as a result of that work.
That's great. Ms. Brody, any questions?
I don't. I have a comment though. When I see low, I know we always say that there, when we get like 30, however much percent participation in the survey, to me, that's still low. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. Appreciate the work. I'm really happy to hear that the financial sustainability work is going out. I think you said 7 years. So again, appreciate it and really looking forward to learning more when you have the findings. So thank you
Sure.
for that update.
Sure thing.
Okay, I'm still checking to see if any of our other board members joined us. I do not think so. So we'll go ahead now to agenda item number 3, which is our year-to-date budget report. Back still with you, CFO Penn.
I think I'm on the wrong, is it this?
There
this-
you go. Thank you. Okay. So now that we're reporting on the month of September, we're kind of rolling along as a district with all of our spends sort of in place, meaning that, this was the first month that we had full payrolls for everyone, things along those lines. So our spending across all funds was a little over 31 million, bringing the year-to-date spend to just over 55. Not surprisingly, we're a staff-based organization, so salaries and fringe continues to drive most of that cost at this point. So as I said, this was the first month of the fiscal year that all the school-based staff were back into the salary expenses. Encumbrances were up about 14 million in the prior month. All of that essentially coming in the tuition line. This is typically the period of the year when we're squaring up with our outside partners on what we think tuition will be for the cost of the year. We will have a much better look at that when we report in December on October's results. As I know, there are a lot of contracts in process, purchase orders in process that we've been doing over the past couple of weeks. Once we started getting confirmation of the number of students that were placed either in special education programs or are attending outside of the district where we have tuition costs that we encumber. So that, once we get past what they call the official October 1 enrollment date, that's when we can really start examining what our estimated expenses are in those programs for the year. And that's probably where we have the most volatility that I see right now in the overall budget. The number of vacancies that we have right now doesn't really give me a great cause for concern about an operating deficit for 21-22. Our team in OTM continues to hire as aggressively as they can to try to bring down that vacancy number. But we are going to continue to monitor our tuition expenses as they become more fully developed over the next month or two, just to make sure that we're in the scope of our budget. And if for some reason we're not, we'll make appropriate adjustments that we'll share with the board around the January timeframe. That would typically when we take a first look at how do we compare and what we estimate our actuals to be for that line versus what we budgeted.
Ms. Brody, any questions on this?
I don't.
Okay, I do see that board member Phil Rigger has also joined us. Phil, I'm just going to check in with you. Any questions regarding we're on agenda item number 3, by the way, and just received the budget update. Okay, I didn't see him come off mute. I'm going to assume he's all set. I do not have any questions either. So thank you, CFO Penn, for that update. Okay, with that, now that we do have Phil, so it'll be at least 3 of us. And Christine, I'm just double checking. I don't see Craig or Jim yet as well, correct?
Correct, nothing.
Okay.
I know Dr. Schmeling did say he would join a little late, but
Okay, well, I guess he said 15 minutes and not 15 minutes yet. Well, actually, so let's go ahead and go to agenda item 4, progress monitoring. That'll be back at you again, CFO Penn. Thank you.
sorry, let me share again.
Thank you. And I think this will be fairly quick. Christine, if you wouldn't mind bringing up that last memo, that would be great. Yeah, it's that one. If you could just kind of zoom in right there. So through November 4th, which is when I ran the update on the data, we had either spent or encumbered about $15 million worth of our COVID funds. That was up $2.5 million from the prior month. You'll see that we're getting closer to having ESSER 1 fully expended, which has got a deadline for the expenditures of September 22nd. Between ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, and we tend to look at those two together as what we would spend over the next 3 years. We've spent a little bit under $7 million so far, all of that during the current year. There are a number of initiatives that are still in the process of being finalized. I know at least one of which is on the agenda for today for consideration. But there is a fair amount of the COVID-related spend that we have that's targeted at new staff. And the same staffing issues that are being persistent across the district right now also have an impact on how quickly we can spend down this money. So when I originally wrote this memo, it was referring to next week, but it's actually this week that the cabinet and our team for ERS will be kind of doing a step back exercise to sort of quantify what the big deviations are in terms of where we thought we would be, and then helping to refine sort of how that affects the plan for the remainder of this year, and if needed for the 3-year period. But we are doing a lot of ongoing tracking with our results around this so far to try and make sure that we're on track with the programming. And I think this step back exercise, and I think it's actually scheduled for later today, I think will go a long way to helping us kind of recalibrate on where the spending needs to be.
Thank you, Ms. Brody, Mr. Rigger. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair,
Okay.
was that Phil that had a question? Oh, I thought I was interrupting him.
No, you're fine.
Okay, I was just saying, and it was discussed in another meeting that Ms. Santiago is going to help us figure out, because I know our last meeting, I asked Mr. Penn said everything was planned for. And Ms. Santiago is trying to get an easy way to present to the board those plans, the dollar associated with the initiative. So I just wanted to make note of that.
That's correct. Thank you for that reminder. So Christine, I'm assuming you're still working on that with the finance team?
Yeah, it was like the ARPS or application, you know, how we had to put in what we were doing with it, as well as the partnership matrix. It's just this huge document that I'm trying to see how I can make it so that it's easy to digest for board, like kind of just pull out the information.
Yep.
But yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Christina, and I'm sorry, Madam Chair, not to interrupt, but Christina, we may want to go back and take a look at some of the previous board slides that we did on this topic as well,
Okay.
to see if that captures at the level of detail that we need. Because yeah, I agree with you. We can put out the full application that went into the state, but that's not an easy to read document, and it doesn't summarize things very well. Okay, but I'll work with you on that to make sure we get what we need to the board.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
And through
thank
you, Madam Chair, I did find that presentation that Mr. Penn referred to, and I think it's going to be that plus a little bit more. Like when I found it, it definitely was helpful.
Okay.
But I think that presentation is definitely the best that I've seen, but it was some things that could be added.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brody. Mr. Rigger, any questions, comments from you?
Madam Chair, just as one more reminder, I know from the last time we discussed this topic, there was also a concern about me just reporting numbers as opposed to the more programmatic view of how the spending is going. And if I recall correctly, board leadership was going to have a conversation about what they were looking for in terms of updates on that. And I'm not sure. I just wanted to try to close the loop on if there's anything this committee needs to do in furtherance of that.
For me, not at this time. I think one of the things that we were talking about was also how is it spread across other committees,
Okay.
and in at times probably more appropriately so in other committees. We're still working, in my opinion, some of that through, but at this time I don't have anything outstanding for you in that regards.
Very good. Thank you.
So we'll follow up as needed. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I still see that other Phil has his mute button still on, so I'm assuming he's all set. Okay, well, thank you everyone for your patience, because now we're going to go back up to item number 1, and we're going to first talk about Dillinger Rad. So, or it might be Dillinger RAD, but go ahead, Christina, and I will allow you to hand it off to the correct person, please.
Okay. And let me just share my screen, and we do have Dr. Silver here on the call. So let me go to talk about Dillinger, and I don't even know myself. Is it RAD or RAD?
Either is fine. Dillinger Rad sounds kind of nice, but it's Dillinger Research and Applied Data.
Yeah, we like RAD. Okay, so Dr. Silver, I'll let you take over.
I'm muted. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. I have a slide deck that I would like to share to give us a little more information.
Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Thank you so much, Christina. Here we are. So this is Dillinger Research and Development, and we are pleased that that Dillinger Research and Development team members are here today. We have the Nicholas Salatino, who is a co-founder and deputy director of Dillinger Rad. And we also have, I believe, Catherine McDonald, who is also a co-founder and the executive director of Dillinger Research and Development. And there are additional people on their staff who would support this work. But this is to talk about our continuous improvement process and the proposed contract services. So over the past 3 years, we've invested a great deal of time, money, energy, resources into our DataWise continuous improvement process. And I'll let you read this slide, but just to summarize, when we were creating our new strategic plan, we realized that there was a gap here. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. There was a gap. And we needed a really comprehensive project management system to support our DataWise work. And specifically, we need to confirm and strengthen that continuous improvement DataWise practice that we have throughout the district. And we didn't have a tracking mechanism for that. So we looked for a partner to build a centralized project management system that would monitor our district DataWise processes, track our data teaming practices, and then triangulate. We have data we're collecting from self-assessments. We are assessing data team artifacts to make sure that they are focused on student data and strategies for addressing student learning needs and improving instruction. We also have walkthrough data that we are collecting where our priority teams walk through our buildings, and one specific part of their walkthrough data collection is the evaluation of the DataWise process. So we expect that across the district, we have about 267 data teams just within our schools that we're looking at their artifacts and their way of operating. Because we want to support them, we want to make sure that we are focused on student data, and we are working to improve instruction to support and differentiate for our learners. In addition, when we triangulate this data, we need a sustainable system, meaning a system that will last us moving forward, to identify and deploy professional learning, to identify the gaps in the effective practices for DataWise, to identify the staff learning needs, and evaluate our fidelity and effectiveness of this approach. So we need to make sure we're doing it correctly, and then we need to make sure that the practice is working and helping our students improve in performance through improving instruction and the supports that they receive. So this aligns with our district model for excellence. The priority 4, skillful staff and effective operations, under the core strategy of enhancing collaboration and teamwork to support innovation, collective inquiry, and continuous improvement. So specific work streams that we have are that we're requiring data-wise practices in place at every school and across all levels of the organization. And we're also requiring a performance data and performance management system that includes systemic and comprehensive representation, standard procedures, protocols, established meeting cadences for each team. So we are also tracking for success, right? For fidelity indicators that we are executing on our plan effectively and that it's achieving the targets and goals that we intended it to. So we are collecting data, and I mentioned that earlier. And we have measures of progress, such as we're calling for 95% of our data teams to complete self-assessments twice per year. We really want to follow up with the teams that are not able to complete the assessments so that we can understand why and get them on track in completing those assessments moving forward. And we want to make sure that at least 50% of our data team's standard processes will be evidenced in the data teaming artifacts that we're collecting and monitoring. We also need to establish a comprehensive calendar of data teaming meetings that identify all meetings, dates, and times so that at any time we can attend these meetings to support the team and to understand the effective practices that are in place, as well as the learning needs of those team members. And then we also need to examine the quality of data and performance management protocols to measure them and improve them. So this core strategy calls for a lot of engagement in our schools with our data teams, monitoring the data-wise practices. So the data-wise process and the practice of data teaming was adopted to ensure all students are successful. So this is a big shout out to equity and to making sure that all of our students are successful. So an equitable district and school is a place where student outcomes are not predicted by demographic data, and that students feel respected and celebrated and supported. They need to be supported. And the data teaming process is a way to ensure that students get the support that they need. So we use equitable practices. We hold all students and staff to high standards. We adjust practice and instruction so all students can learn. We take stock of where we're coming from and where our students are coming from, and we seek to actively interrupt patterns of inequity through the data-wise data teaming process. Our data teams, typically in a school, you will have a school-wide data team, and then as you move over to the right, we have instructional data teams such as grade level teams or the multi-tiered systems of support or content areas. And we also have programmatic data teams. And our ACE data team comes to mind right away. That team is focused on attendance, culture, and engagement. So there will be probably, depending on the school, other programmatic data teams, such as a magnet school might have a data team that's focused solely on implementing a high quality magnet theme in their building. So those are different kinds of data teams that we have and the members that we expect to see on those data teams. And this is the famous swoosh. This is the data-wise process and outcomes. And if you start at the very bottom of this lower left side, organize for collaborative work, and you can follow that swoosh all the way around. So the actions are those 8 steps, the 8 actions that our teams make, the very broad general actions. There are very specific sub-actions underneath each one of these areas. But it helps us build teams and structures, building a comfort with data, identifying a priority question, and based on the data that we have in front of us, with a learner-centered problem to solve, focus on a problem of practice, an action plan, and then assess your progress and move forward in response to that. And if you notice on the bottom of the page, This is a slide that we use in training in the professional learning that we offer our staff. And there's a link here to the rolling agenda because that agenda is something that we need available to us. Again, as part of the work that our consultant would do would be to go through all of these agendas to monitor the integrity of the data teaming practices. So again, schools establish data-wise teams. They are required to communicate their meeting calendars, share their rolling agendas, create them and share them, complete the data teaming self-assessment together with the data team in the fall and again in the spring. So as a result of the contract, Dillinger Research and Development brings 3 core skills, which is project management and interpersonal skills with that, data technical expertise, and DataWise experience. They have DataWise trained, Harvard trained DataWise coaches. And they have a Harvard trained DataWise coach who will be working directly with us and our team. And Dillinger Rad will conduct a comprehensive analysis of the school and data team landscape, the district system landscape, engage in a process to design, build out, and implement the standardized processes of the data teaming and DataWise in the district, identify our training needs, design and set up a process for deploying staff professional learning, support us with a dashboard and report build outs, as well as understand and measure impact. So that is a quick overview of the intended work for the Dillinger Rad contract.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up now to my colleagues for questions. And I guess I'll continue first calling you, Ms. Brody.
Is this what was presented in committee? All these initiatives, I'm trying not to let them run together. But because we talked, what committee did this go through this month, or did it?
Thank you so much for that question, Ms. Browdy. Because this is an operational effectiveness, a skillful staff and operational effectiveness contract, this is the committee that it came to this month.
Okay, so that leads to a question, because we received, in one of the committees, there was a presentation, and I believe it passed. We spent money on data, right? So now this one is sort of, are we saying we're spending more? Because I was thinking like it sounds sort of the same, but some things sound different. So please help me remember what, because I believe it was, I believe you presented on it, Dr. Silva. Like we needed to better, it was like data around COVID and it helps us collect that data and keep it. And so I'm trying to make sense of this one we have before us and that one that I believe has passed and been approved by the board.
Yes, thank you so much. I have that contract right here. That was that was an extension of our Qualtrics contract. This is a consulting company, and which is slightly different from the data, the technical, very technical nature of the Qualtrics contract, which is a data collection platform that we had adopted. We began to use it last spring and found that the use of it just kept expanding. We did our return to learn survey, and this Qualtrics contract replaced the Panorama contracts that we had to do our climate survey. We also used it for registration in school, registration for the summer programs, and registration for vaccinations. And with an additional $5,000 data module on September 15th, we brought this to our board, but with an additional $5,000 data module, we were able to fold in all of our COVID reporting tools into the, sorry, my light is out, into that system. So this is a separate system a separate contract from that contract.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. Mr. Rigger, any questions or comments? Give it one more moment in case you need to get off mute. Okay, if not, I want to underscore or perhaps just piggyback on something that Ms. Brody brought up. I think it will be helpful because we've had a number of these contracts as it relates to our data, just something that even if it's a quick diagram, I happen to be a visual learner, so I shouldn't say it has to be a diagram, but just something that says, hey, this does this, this does this, this does that, because I think it was a really good point that she just brought up. I have a little bit more familiar with Dillinger because I oversee the Youth Service Bureau for Hartford. I would just suggest that we go ahead and do something to that, because I could see that question coming back up again to better understand how is this assisting. And also we've talked about DataWise, but it's been now probably at least a year, if not 2 years, that we've actually talked about DataWise. So it may be helpful, especially as we have new people on the board, to make sure that people have a good sense and or have that information to ground them as they're having conversations and making a decision. Outside of that, I do not have any questions myself. And I'll just check in one more time just to make sure that Mr. Rigger is all set. And if I don't hear anything, I'm assuming you're all set. Give me just a moment.
And I do want to ask, is this this presentation, we're gonna get it right if we haven't already, or should I just look in board docs, Ms. Santiago?
This one it will be in board docs, and I will send it as well.
Thank
to-
you.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm assuming Mr. Rigger's all set. So I will say I don't have any concerns with this moving forward. Ms. Brody or Mr. Rigger, if you have any concerns, please let me know. All right, so we'll move this forward to our regular board meeting. Thank you very much, Dr. Silver, and also representatives from Dillinger Research and Development. All right, thank you. All right,
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to our next item. Again, we're still in agenda item number 1, but now we're at 1.02, Cumberland Therapy. I'll hand over to you, Ms. Santiago, to then go ahead and facilitate.
Thank you. We have on the call, let me make sure she's still on, Miss Jennifer Hoffman. Do I see her? No, there you are. I was like, wait, where'd you go? And she will speak to Cumberland Therapy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Hoffman. I'm the Senior Executive Director for Special Education and People Services. The agenda item for Cumberland is to request an increase to the current contract. We are having a very difficult time filling vacancies, especially around our paraeducators who support IEP goals and objectives. And so the request is to increase by $600,000, which would fill 20 paraeducator positions. Cumberland has indicated that they could provide these support staff by December 1st and hopefully support our students moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Ms. Brody, Mr. Rigger, any questions or comments?
Through you, Madam Chair, can we discuss the efforts that we've made to hire paraprofessionals?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Of course. So we have, of course, had our posting up since last year. Even last year, we had difficulty filling these positions. So we continue to recruit. We're making slow progress. I would say, maybe we have 2 hires a week, which is slow progress. But we're doing the best we can there. And trying to move forward with that.
So no sharing of direct efforts, like we've had this amount of job fairs, we've had this amount, like who are we advertising to? And maybe this is not for you. But understanding that, what have we really done to hire, as opposed to outsourcing? That's what I'm most interested in. So I'm maybe you don't have the answers today, but maybe for the board meeting, someone will be able to present our efforts.
Also connected to that, I also wonder, Ms. Hoffman, is there an opportunity if we are working with Cumberland Therapy with someone and they end up being a wonderful fit for the district, that they're able to pipeline and become a permanent employee for Hartford Public Schools? I know usually there's a fee and all of that, but is that an option or an opportunity here?
I would have to look into the contract, but generally there is a fee, or they're held with that actual agency for a number of years.
Thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? Okay, from the questions, I'll ask now if any concerns about moving this forward to the regular board meeting. Hearing
No
none.
concerns, but I'm hoping that they'll be ready to discuss those questions we had. That was a good question, Madam Chair. Like, could we get them? Because I always say we can't hire them, but all these firms that out consult, and I have, that someone has them because we're getting them through these contracts. So what are we not doing that these other companies are doing that we're getting them from? And that's not just paraprofessionals, it's others. So I just would like, I would like for us to be able to dig into that a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. Agreed. With that, I'll go ahead and say we are okaying it to move forward to our regular board meeting. Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. So now we're moving on. We are now at item 1.03 TNTP. Again, I'll move it over to you, Ms. Santiago.
Thank you. I know I wasn't there, but I know that this item was discussed at the Teaching and Learning Committee and moved. I believe it went okay. And then we actually had another extra meeting to meet with the vendors because they weren't able to make that meeting. So I will now turn it over to Dr. Curtis if there are any questions on the financials or anything else.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you for this opportunity. So we are here to request a very short 6-month contract with TNTP for $217,127 to help build and implement the recruiting and hiring season that will begin next month in December and take us through May. And so we believe that this partnering with TNTP will help us build the system that we need to implement that will hopefully lead to all of our openings being filled by June 30th to get us ready for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis. Colleagues, any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, only that we asked if the TTNP will have representation at the board meeting, and that happened in the meeting that we had just with them and board members, and it was said that they would try. It didn't sound definite, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to join us.
A quick update on that. Yes, it is definite. I will have to provide a virtual for not only that, but another vendor who are a little far, but they will be there to answer questions. Yes.
That's great. Thank you. One of the things I just also, and I was not able to make that special meeting that was held to go through this contract, just as it relates to our budget. So, and again, Dr. Curtis, please feel free to jump in here and correct me. We're taking advantage of this opportunity or you're proposing this, so we can take advantage of the opportunity to kind of get us on the kind of almost, I would usually say right size, I feel like a right track as it relates to our timing for our hiring process, is so that we would be able to be in a cycle where our postings are out earlier, because it's the way in terms of our timeline as it relates to the budget, et cetera. Is that still fair to say? Okay, so you're nodding your head still. Okay, good. So I think one of the things that will continue to be helpful is really lifting up that point there, because I'm hearing about these missed opportunities that we have with staff and our talent going elsewhere because we're not able to confirm postings. And then, when we started and through the updates from Chief Penn, just heard of course, the market is very tough right now for everyone, but we have these vacancies. So I think that it will be important to really speak to that and to be able to detail how TNTP will be able to help accelerate us. So that was more of a comment than a question, but I appreciate you, Dr. Curtis. I see Mr. Rigger now on screen. So I just wanted to offer you an opportunity if you had any questions or comments as it relates to TNTP contract, especially from a financial perspective.
I think Dr. Curtis can attest. I posed a tremendous amount of questions, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday. Completely understand kind of what's at stake and the opportunity that's in front of us. And my understanding is once we clear this phase, that we'd be better aligned for the future.
All right. Okay. Thank you. With that, to my two colleagues, Mr. Rigger and Ms. Brody, any concerns with us moving this forward to the regular board meeting?
No concerns for me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rigger. Okay. I think then we are all set. I have no concerns as well. Thank you, Dr. Curtis. We'll see you at the regular board meeting. So now we are on agenda item 1.04, intervene K-12. Ms. Santiago.
Thank you. Again, this one was also discussed at the Teaching and Learning Committee. I believe there was a few asks. So we have Dr. Negron and her team on the call, as well as I believe a brief presentation, and I will share my screen. So Dr. Negron, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Christina. So I know 2 weeks ago we presented in Teaching and Learning, and I know that Madam Chair Oliver was there, and Board Member Brody also was with us at the time. So today we want to make sure that we do a brief recap, but also want to hone in into some of the great questions that were posed at Teaching and Learning to make sure that everybody feels confident with all the details as they relate to the high dosage tutoring, which is part of our extended learning opportunities, right? And for this strategy, we would like to enter into a partnership with Intervene K-12. Christina, next slide. So as I shared again 2 weeks ago, wanted to refresh everybody's minds that this particular strategy stem from what we heard, right, from our stakeholders when we were engaging about what the community wanted to see in terms of our strategic plan and also our ESSER investments. So we heard from families that they wanted greater focus for us to meet the individual needs and be able to provide tutoring to students. And the principals also shared that they wanted us to target investments based on student needs. Christina, next. And this slide, I just wanted to remind everybody, right? As we were going through the process of identifying where it was that we were going to be allocating or ESSER funding, that in terms of resource allocation, and now I want to call your attention to this table here, the second row, where I have resource allocation. that at that point, to make sure that we were still investing in equity, that we share that we wanted to use data to target resources equitably by student need, right? So I want to highlight the student need. And that in this case, that we were looking to make sure that we were defining that student need by multiple indicators. In some cases, it could be like earning warning indicators, but particular this one as it pertains to high dosage tutoring, this is where we will be looking at the academic achievement of students for the high dosage tutoring. And this lovely chart we presented to kind of explain to you that as it relates to high dosage tutoring as our strategy, which is meant to be pre-K 12, that I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that this particular partnership with Intervene would be to support our external track. We are building 2 tracks in this high dosage tutoring, because we know one of the things that we have learned, right, is that we have some challenges around staffing and also, right, people feeling exhausted with the complexities of the job. And we wanted to make sure that we were not going to be putting too much on the plate of our own staff. And thus we were able to do a lot of research, came across Intervene that has been able to do this work in other places. And we're looking to partner with them to do this track again that we are labeling as our external track. And this would serve our students in grades 3 to 12, right? We would then build our own as it relates to what we're calling our internal track, but that would be more to address the students in grades pre-K 2, and that for that we will be using our own staff. But again, for external, and the intent of this particular contract, it will be grades 3-12. One of the questions that was asked 2 weeks ago was, well, then how would we evaluate it? How will we know that we are on track? How do we know that also Intervene, right, as a partner is doing what they need to do? So I have added this piece in this diagram here to illustrate that in some of the ways that we would do that would be to, number one, we would be able to track, for example, attendance reports, right? How many students are showing up in a given cycle? Those will be reports that we will get directly from Intervene. We would also be able to look at how the students are progressing. Where were they at the start of that cycle of high dosage tutoring? Where are they at the end of that cycle? So that would be data that we would be able to collect and report on. And also the rest of the implementation outcomes as it relates to the number of students that should be served by those individual tutoring providers and sessions. So this was, again, a way for me to address one of the questions that had come up 2 weeks ago. In the next slide, which we had last month.
There we go.
Thank you, Christina. Again, just a graphic to illustrate again that we are speaking about our high dosage tutoring when we look at the way that we're building a continuum of supports that does fall at the top of this pyramid, right? So we are talking about our tier 3 supports. So that would mean that there would be an investment on data analysis and collection and triangulation to truly identify who are our most students in need of high dosage tutoring. And then there will be a process to recommend them for this particular level of support. In the next slide, then I wanted to share with you a little bit about how we would do that, because this was another question that came up 2 weeks ago. So prior to us actually launching the work, what would happen would be that we would be working, right, immediately after hopefully this contract is approved, we would be releasing all our marketing and advertisement to families. that already our Assistant Director of Extended Day, Extended Year, Kaylin Jacobs, has begun to put that work together, right? There would also be the analysis of student data to truly identify the students who are in need and who then would be referred to the high dosage tutoring. This process then would take about 2 to 3 weeks before we would officially begin like a high dosage tutoring cycle. So again, this is the piece that we're very eager to begin, but we cannot begin, right, until we know that we do have clearance to engage in this process and that we're indeed going to be partnering with Intervene. Once we have done the pre-work, we will enter into agreements and contracts with families to ensure, again, that they are on board and that they understand the responsibilities, right? The responsibility of the student, the family, the program, because this, again, is intended to bring students in so that they can be in a cycle for 4 to 6 weeks. This is high dosage tutoring, not to be confused with what we've done in the past, which is more like, you know, come in, like when you feel like you need, when you have a need, right? This would be like scheduled and targeted for 4 to 6 week cycles. We will provide introductions and background information on the program to the families, and that this would occur 1 to 2 weeks prior to the cycle starting, which again, we hope to start after board approval around November 29th. Then while students are engaging, right, once students are part of the high dosage tutoring and they're engaging in a cycle, families will receive a mid-cycle progress report that they will be able to access online, and that this will occur halfway through that cycle. So about 2 to 3 weeks into the work, they will be receiving that update to hear how their student is progressing. And then this would be ongoing throughout the year. And then after the cycle is concluded, right? So after those 4 to 6 weeks that the student has been in the high dosage tutoring, we will identify if the student can be exited from the high dosage tutoring, or if they need to continue, but they need to then enter into another cycle, meaning that something else will be targeted during those 4 to 6 weeks. Parents will receive an end of cycle report the last week of the cycle. And this again will be ongoing as cycles move throughout the year. So again, this was my intent of trying to address the questions that were posed 2 weeks ago. At this point, the remaining slides speak a little more about the way that Intervene goes about doing this work. And I do, hold on, Christina, hold on. I do have representatives here with us once again for Intervene. So Chair Madam, I wanted to take the lead into how much specificity do you want us to go into so that we can sort of give some feedback to our representatives that are with us today.
Thank you for that, Dr. Negron. Yes, at this point, for those of us who are Teaching and Learning Committee, the content was already provided in the alignment with like the MTSS model, et cetera. I think if there's any key highlights that you think may be helpful that I think Mr. Rigger, perhaps, because both Shante and I are on the Teaching and Learning Committee. So I would ask you if there's any key points that you would like to learn, if I give that privilege to you, if you would like to learn a little bit more.
I think I'm in a good place right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Rigger. In that case, Dr. Negron, what I would say is if there's something that you believe that would be helpful from a financial perspective for us to, you know, to underscore or go through, perhaps that would be it. And at the same time, actually, let me just double check with Ms. Brody. Do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Only one, because I joined Teaching and Learning. That was my day. I was looking for this link and Miss Santiago was vacationing.
I was in an
So,
island.
so my only question is more so, I have my parent teacher conference today. So I'm thinking that schools are already knowing what students are needing supports, and I'm assuming, like, if this passes, are we going right into that? Like, the students are identified and we're ready, and we're just starting right away.
So Ms. Brody, you're absolutely right, right? We're right now getting ready to do parent-teacher conferences. So we also have the results of the assessments that were done at the beginning of the year. So when I spoke about taking a close look into the data analysis, that would be the process that we would engage in, right? That we're going to take a look, where is each student's performance, and that we're also want to make sure that we are bringing in the voice of the teacher and the voice of the principal, so that this becomes a collaborative effort when it comes to making the final recommendations of the students that need to be recommended for this high dosage tutoring program. Christina, if you can bring me to, I don't know what number it is, but I do have a slide that speaks about our next steps.
Oh, is it near the end?
Yeah, if you go towards the end.
Sorry, I'm gonna just flip through into.
Yep, yes, please, thank you. There it is, right?
Yeah,
So, go back. So, Ms. Brody, what would happen, right? Immediately after that Board of Ed meeting, this is where we would begin immediately to bring this. And we have shared all of extended learning opportunities, like a broad overview, for example, with our principals, right? As we were in the development of the SOP. But this is where then we will go deeper into the details of what this looks like. So this is where, like, Keelan and I would meet with them and say, hey, this is the whole piece. This is the way that we are looking that program would work. This is where we would partner with you in terms of the student identification, and then also partner with them as to what will that look like in the actual building. In the presentation that we made in Teaching and Learning, and I know that we were very brief, we did say also that what is great about Intervene is that there's flexibility there, right? There, you can either offer this during the school day. This could be offered after school hours. A student could actually engage in a learning cycle, like as part of the weekends, right? So that is where we want to engage in those conversations with the people who know our students best, right? Which are the teachers and the principals, and of course, consulting with the families too, and doing all of that data analysis. And once we identify, that's where that conversation happens with the family, and also to leverage where are the opportunities in a given building, right? If in a given building, it's like, hey, this is a time where we could actually support this high dosage tutoring, and because it is virtual, right? I have to say, this is virtual high dosage. If the structure allows for that to happen during the school day, then we would do so. But I want to reiterate that that will depend on the individual building, on their individual context. And that is where the voice of the building leader will become key. So it's like, we're not going to force the way and where it has to fit, because we know it has got to meet the needs for all the parties involved. I know that was long-winded, but I wanted to make sure that that included all the different parties that are involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Negron. Thank you, Ms. Brody. I don't have any additional questions. I think Mr. Rigger said earlier he was all set. So I'll ask my board member at this time if there's any concerns about bringing this contract to our regular board meeting.
I don't have any.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. All right, hearing none, and I do not have concerns. we're going to go ahead and move this to our regular board meeting. Thank you, Dr. Negron, and also the team from Intervene. Thank you for attending this morning. Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of our agenda. Ms. Santiago, I just want to check in case we missed anything. I think we're all set, though.
No, this is great. All set.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Much appreciation. And we look forward to seeing you at the